Okay, Be'ezrat Hashem, Naaseh v'Natzliach. I want to welcome you to another session of our Parashat Shavua class here at Sha'arei Ezra. Baruch Hashem, it's going strong. Doing some very good classes. We have some regulars, we have new guests. Before we get started, I'd like to first give some dedications that this class would be to the Ilui Nishmat of David ben Zohara, Yaniv ben Rina, Daniel ben Juna, Miriam ben Simi, Bat Simi, Pinchas ben Chasiba, Rachel ben Chana Vaknin, Shlomo David ben Isha, Alfred Shlomo ben Luis Chana, Shlomo ben Chana v'Yom Tov Menajed, Rachel Itel bat Devora, Nachaman Yaakov ben Chana, Miriam bat Esther, Yonatan ben Alice, Eli Uziel ben Yosef Veremo, and also lehavdil should be to refuah to Miriam bat Pesi, Shalom ben Chasiba, and Michael ben Eliyahu. David ben Chana. Menaged. Also, this class is dedicated to in the honor of Tova Shindel bat Alta, and the following people have general success, health, wealth, bracha v'atzlacha, b'sorot tovot, and atzlacha b'chol ma'aseh yedehem. In Bar bat Jacqueline, Bat Chen bat Jacqueline, Yuda Lev ben Tova Shindel, Esther Stacy bat Miriam, Yonatan Moshe and Julie Arimi, Shalom Eliyahu ben Stacy Esther, Avram ben Vayrot Chaya, the Refuah Shlema as well, Henshi Gordetsky and family, Guy ben Dinan and family, Abi and Jeff Sakar. Okay.
That's my friend Yermi Knight.
Who?
Yermi.
Ben? Tov, Yermi Knight, Baruch Hashem. So, this week's parasha, it's a double parasha. It's Parashat Behar and Bechukotay. And let's just read a couple pesukim just to get a feeling for the parasha, and then we'll take it from there. It says, Im Bechukotay telechu, ve'et mitzvotay tishmeru, va'asitem otam. If you will follow my decrees and observe my commandments and perform them, ve'natati gishmechem be'itam, and I will give you the rains in their proper time. And the land will give its produce, and the trees of the field will give its fruit. By the way, this is the good part. This is amazing promises by God to us. It says that your threshing of the field will last until the vintage, and the vintage will last until the sowing, and you will eat your bread and be satiated, and you will dwell securely in your land. This is, I know you're retiring with a smile on your face. V'natati shalom ba'aretz, there'll be peace in the land. V'shachavtem ve'en machid, you can lay down and relax. There is no enemy, nobody to scare you away. V'shbati chaya ra'ah min ha'aretz, there won't be any wild animals in the land that you have to fear. V'cherev lo ta'avor ba'aretzechem, there won't be a sword that will pass in your land, meaning there'll be no war. Urdaftem et oivechem v'nafru lechem lecharev, you will chase your enemies and they will fall to your sword. V'ratfu mikem chamisha me'a u'mea mikem revava yedefu. It says 5 people can chase 100, and 100 can chase 1,000. V'naiflu oivechem livnechem lecharev, and your enemies will fall beneath your sword. Ufaniti alechem, and I will turn to you. V'ifreti etchem, I will make you fruitful, or in other words, we'll have a lot of children. V'irbeti etchem, and I'll make you. Let's see what it says. I will increase you. V'akimoti et briti etchem, and I will establish my covenant with you. Wow, what a start! But I don't know if you noticed. It starts off that Hashem promised all these things: financial success, peace, harmony, protection from enemies. Enemies will fall to our sword. Children, not only children, the covenant that He promised us throughout the years will come true. You have to go back to the first pasuk to understand how you get all these guarantees. Welcome. Im bechukotay telchu, that's if you follow my decrees. Ve'im mitzvotay tishmoru, and if you go according to my commandments, right? So we have over here something very, very interesting. We have a formula. A plus B equals C. If you keep the Torah, if you perform the mitzvot, the result of that is all the promises that Hashem has given us in this parasha and other parashiot. So we have here a guarantee from God that He's going to take care of us if we follow the Torah and the mitzvot. Okay, let's start digging, because this is the only pasuk we're going to be learning off today. In pasuk Gimel, it says, "Im bechukotay telchu ve'et mitzvotay tishmoru." Right? How does Rashi understand it? How does Rashi understand that if you follow my decrees and observe my commandments? Rashi says, "Im bechukotay telchu shetihiyu amelim batorah." What's im tihiyu amelim batorah? If you are going to be toiling in the Torah. If you toil in the Torah, then you will receive all these benefits. Continues to say, "Hevu amelim batorah al menat lishmo velekayem." כמו שנאמר, ולימדתם אותם ושמרתם לעשותם. He says that you should learn them, or you should toil with the Torah, but not just so you can gather information, like like a lot of people learn Torah and they open up a library in their brain. It becomes like a library. They know all the books by heart, but do they apply it? Not even one thing. So Rashi is telling us furthermore, va'amaltem, yes, amal Torah, the toil of Torah learning, but for the reason of performing the mitzvot, living out the Torah life. Okay. So we see that all our success is hinged on us toiling and learning in the Torah and the performing of mitzvot. A bulk of what we're going to be learning today is going to come from Shvilei Pinchas. Shvilei Pinchas has an incredible ma'amar over here. He says, Tzarich bi'ur. We need to understand this a little bit better. When it says, Im bechukotay telechu, if you'll go in my ways, if you'll go in my commandments, if you observe my decrees, shakavana hi shetiyu amelim batorah. Who says that that's what that means? How could Rashi come to that understanding? That when it says Im bechukotay telechu ve'mitzvotay tishmeru, that it actually means that you have to toil in Torah. How does he get that? So it says, very interestingly, that there's something really strange over here, because we know that there's one thing that we know in the service Hashem, is that we don't do it in order to get a reward, right? We don't do it in order to get a reward. We do it because we were commanded, right? Why am I eating kosher? Because I was commanded. Why do I keep Shabbat? Because I was commanded. We're not supposed to derive any sort of enjoyment. We're Eved Hashem. What's an Eved Hashem? We're a servant of God. What Hashem wants us to do is what we do. Where's the reward? Where's my paycheck? And Olam Haba. We don't expect nothing over here. I don't expect that because I keep Shabbat that I'm going to become a millionaire. I don't expect because I keep kosher that I'm going to have all the health in the world. We do it because we were told to do. Oh, so where's your reward for all this hard work of a Jew? Olam Haba. Okay. So let's go back to the first point of the class. You're saying that I'm going to get all this reward. How? By toiling for the Torah. So this is what he says over here. Masechet Kiddushin, on the 39th page, on the second side, it says, Schar mitzvah behai alma leika. The reward of a mitzvah in this world, leika. It doesn't exist. You don't get it in this world. And furthermore, Masechet Brachot, on the 34th page on the second side, Ki hasachar shel tamidei hachachamim ne'emar. There's a pasuk in Yeshaya, Ayin lo ra'ata Elokim zuratecha ya'aseh lemechake lo. We have a pasuk that says that the reward that the Torah learners get only in Olam Haba. So how can it be that the pasuk tells us שהשכר על עמל התורה ואכלתם לחמכם לשובע? The Torah is actually letting us know that we're going to get a reward in this world. So wait, this is a contradiction. Sachar in Olam Haba. The Torah is telling me, no, you're getting keep the chukot, keep the the mitzvot, and you get the kshamim, you get the yevula, you get etz hasadeh, you get the daish, you get the tzir, the zara, shalom ba'aretz, you have cherev lo ta'avor, the oivim are going to fall, you're going to have vefreti etchem, verbeti etchem. Oh, wow, there's so much going on. But the reward is for olam haba. What's going on? So, does amal haTorah really mean toil? Does it really mean that we have to work and reward in the next world, or something else? So, we're going to bring David HaMelech into this, because David HaMelech says something very interesting. David HaMelech says in Tehillim, in Perek Kuf Yutet, which is in Pasuk Tet Zayin, the same word of this parasha. This is Parashat Behar-Bechukotay, right? He says, Bechukotecha eshta'ashea lo eshkach devarecha. It says that with your decrees or with your commandments, I'm going to have a joyful time, and I'm not going to forget your word. So the Midrash is letting us know that the reason why David HaMelech used this word, Bechukotecha eshta'ashea, because the word Bechukotecha is corresponding to what he wants to say on Parashat Behar-Bechukotay. The first pasuk that we're discussing, David HaMelech is chiming in and he's saying, you know, Behar-Bechukotay, when the pasuk says that you have to follow my decrees and follow my commandments, let me teach you something. He says, Im Behar-Bechukotay tilchu, yeah, that does mean to go amelim b'Torah, that you have to toil in the Torah. But David HaMelech says, Bechukotecha eshta'ashea. He says, with your decrees, with your commandments, I actually have a good time. So wait, is mitzvot to have a good time, or is it mitzvot to serve Hashem? Right? When I do a mitzvah, do I do it because I was commanded, or do I do it because it's fun?
But if you delight in the mitzvah, the idea is really to do it, to actually be happy with all the mitzvah, to have delight. Have the mitzvot, like you see, you just shake the lulav, like you're happy.
For that you get, for that.
So Baruch Hashem, we're going to get to that probably in 20 minutes from now. You're getting there. We're like chotrim l'sham. We're like getting there. But this is the question that we're asking. Mitzvot are supposed to be performed, not to be enjoyed. What a strict, stringent opinion of following the Torah. But let's just see. How about both? So.
That you get both.
So the Radak comes in with an opinion. It says, "Sha'shuim v'simcha hamevatlim shichat haTorah." He says that this pasuk that says "Bechukotecha eshta'ashea lo eshkach devarecha," he says that this joyfulness, this happiness, are able to nullify the power of someone being able to forget their Torah. We know that we have a thing that people forget the Torah, right? They learn something and then they forget it, right? They forget something from this morning, something from yesterday, from last week, from last year. He says that this pasuk is coming to teach us that when somebody does it joyfully and out of happiness, it has the power to not be able to forget the Torah. Once again, it's mentioning that pasuk. He says, when I look at your chukot, this is what David HaMelech is saying, according to the Radak. When I look at your mitzvot, when I look at your decrees, it makes me happy, makes me joyful. And because I am happy and joyful, I also, lo eshkacham, kiem lashon simchat levav. Because I'm happy and joyful, I'm able to not forget the Torah as well. This is what David HaMelech is telling us about this first pasuk in the parasha. Furthermore, if you just want to simplify it, huh?
That pasuk number 8, Kuf Yutet.
In Kuf Yutet, in Tehillim, no, it's Tet Zayin.
Which pasuk is that?
Pasuk Tet Zayin,
Tet Zayin?
which is probably the last one of the bet.
Bet number, I meant 16, sorry.
The 8th of that.
8 and 8 is 16. Sorry?
This guy knows. This guy is deep. Don't let the long hair fool you. Or the hat. So what are we seeing over here? If we want to simplify this opinion, Amal Torah, the toiling of Torah, equals happiness, joyfulness, and has the power to nullify the negative power of forgetting Torah. In other words, it gives you the power to remember your Torah and to be joy. That's Amal HaTorah. That's, if you take the word Amal HaTorah, the toil of Torah, now it sounds hardly like it's work. It sounds like fun. It sounds like I'm enjoying something. I'm having a good time with it, and I'm also deriving a benefit of not being able to forget any Torah that I'm learning. Now, if we look at this, then it's a bit of a contradiction. Because one says that it's, one you could say that it's work, and the other one says that it's fun. So which one is it? So the truth is that it's not a contradiction, because anybody who toils in the Torah, he actually gets to enjoy the Torah. Anybody who really immerses himself in Torah learning, later on eventually finds out that it's pleasing, it's satisfying, it makes you happy when you learn Torah. It actually makes the neshama happy. Meaning, you might get into it saying it's hard work. I got to put in the time. I got to put in the hours. I got to read books. This is how can I get into it? But once you get into it, you're like, oh my God, this is okay. This is fun. This is enjoyable. It's actually the best thing that's happening to me right now. I love it more than anything else. So you see that the one thing that was amal is now becoming something completely different, and there's no contradiction. It's the same thing. When you're amal b'Torah, you get this shashuim, you get this simcha. Now, where does this come from? Where does this come from that when a person learns Torah, he becomes happy, and it's an enjoyment, and it's a joyful event? You know where we get that from? From Hashem. Because you know what happens when Hashem learns Torah? He gets that exact same feeling. We learned that from Mishle. It says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu haya mishtashea b'Torah. We know that the Kadosh Baruch Hu, before he gave us the Torah, he used to deal with it every single day. Vaya mishtashea. What's mishtashea? I don't know what's the right word for it in Hebrew. You know, we don't say gan shashuim. When you go to the park, that's the shashuim for the kids. You know, how much fun do they have when they go to the park? Imagine, this is the shashuim of the adults when you go into the Torah. Gan shashuim you have right inside the book. And it says over here, it's an olomar, kasher hayta Torah shashuim lakadosh baruch hu, just like the Torah was something joyful and enjoyable for Kadosh Baruch Hu before the creation of the world. Kodem yitzirat haolam, ken tiyeh mischaket batevel achei shniva haolam v'shashuim bnei adam. Similarly, it should be that same way for the human beings after the creation of the world. So that's why it's embedded in the Torah that a person can derive that type of experience when he's learning it. Furthermore, we're starting to see that toiling in Torah equals joy. How? Because when God toiled with Torah before the world was created, He derived joy from it. And now that we're toiling in the Torah after the world was created, we're deriving joy from it. So it's embedded in it. You have to understand that there's always things that you have to go back to the beginning. The root of everything tells you exactly about what it is. Now, Rabbi Moshe Mikovrin says, "Haneshama ba'a me'olam ha'ta'anug." He says that the person's soul comes from a place of enjoyment, a place of pleasure. לכן רודף אדם מטבעו כל ימי חייו למלא את התענוג שאיבד. That's why a person is constantly, his nature is his entire life is to chase after pleasures that he lost. Why? Because the Jewish neshama comes from where? Hashem. But from where? In the heavens? From Kisei HaKavod. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a Kisei HaKavod, and all the neshamot of Am Yisrael come from the bottom part of Kisei HaKavod. What does that mean? Ask your local Kabbalist. But for this class, we understand that place, the neshamot over there are having the most enjoyable experience of their lives, right? You take them out from there, and they come into this world, and they're like, hey, you know where we come from? We come from a place of joy, happiness, a place where we're constantly in a state of pleasure. So what did they seek? They always seek to go to their root, to where they came from. So it says over here, that's why a person is constantly looking for how to please themselves. Because naturally we come, the neshama that is within us comes from that source. Now, it says, Haguf, sherodef achet ta'anugim chumayim, the body that goes after physical pleasures, menahel milchama chuma im haneshama, is at constant war with the soul. The body's pleasures versus the soul's pleasures. Who's going to win? The soul wants the Torah because that's the neshama's pleasure. The body wants everything that the body wants. If it's food, if it's this, if it's that, if it's a vacation, if it's sleep, if it's all these different things that people, the devices that people are drawn to in order to satisfy these physical pleasures. It says that the guf mechapes et ta'anugim ruchaniyim shel haTorah, milchemet choma. We say the body wants the material, the physical, and the neshama wants the spiritual. That's the Torah. Just last night, Baruch Hashem, in my synagogue, came a Rabbi Gavriel Hasson, who gave an incredible chidush that is custom made for this shiur, and I'm saying this in his honor. We're going to go back to Sefer Bereshit, to the first days of creation. Perek Aleph, Pasuk Vav, and it says, Vayomer Elohim yehi rakia betoch hamayim, v'hi mavdil ben mayim lemayim. This is the part of creation where Hashem separates the waters, and He separates between the lower waters and the higher waters, the waters that are in the heavens and the waters that are here in the earth, and He created the sky that's in between them. And it says Vayhi rakia. There's a commentary called Kli Yakar that I don't know how we got into this, but look what the rabbi has to say and look how it ties into our parasha. He says, the Kli Yakar in Masechet Chagiga on the 12th page, Amar Yehuda, Amar Rav, B'shah shebarah Kadosh Baruch Hu ta'olam, he says when Kadosh Baruch Hu was creating the world, Haya marchiv v'olech, was expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding, like 2 points going further from each other. Ad shega'ar ba Kadosh Baruch Hu ve'midot shene'emar, until the Kadosh Baruch Hu told the sky, stop. It says, shene'emar amudei shamayim. That's the pasuk they gave. V'hainu da'amar Resh Lakish. This is what Resh Lakish said in the pasuk. What did he say? Ani El Shaddai. Ani shamati la'olami dai. The name Shaddai that we put on mezuzot, what is the source for it? It's actually like a shorter way of saying Ani shamati la'olami dai. In other words, when Hashem started to create the world was expanding and expanding, 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 until Hashem had to tell the world, stop. Up until here. Ani shamati la'olam dai. I am the one that told the world, stop. Meaning to stop expanding. Similarly, when the Kadosh Baruch Hu created the ocean, the ocean also started to grow and grow and grow and grow. Until Kadosh Baruch Hu, Ga'ar means like to yell or to scream or to chastise or to rebuke, and tells him, stop growing, you have to stop, this is too much. So we have the oceans, we have the waters and the earth that Hashem, the Shamayim, Vetamayim, that Hashem had to make them stop. Now, let's go back to the human being. The human being, we see that the human being has a nature. What's the nature of a human being? That he's never satisfied, and he's constantly searching to push the envelope, to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, that there's no end to it, that there's no borders, that everything is permissible, and he can do whatever that he wants, meaning non-stop, just like the sky was going without stop, just like the water was growing, expanding without stop, so too the human being says, I want to do whatever I want, I want to go here, I want to go there, I want to do this, I want to do that, no borders. So he says, why would that be? Why would the human being have the same mechanism as the water or as the earth of just wanting to grow with no borders, without restrictions? Because Hashem told the water, water, you stay here, and from here you don't move. And for the earth, he said, you stay here. Yabashah is over here, the Maim is over here, and these are your borders. And that's where they had to stay because God commanded them. But why does a human being have the same quality? So this is very interesting. It says, because Ha'adam kibel teva molidav, that the human being got the nature of the ones that created him. Interesting. What created man? Hashem is the creator, but what was he made out of?
Earth and water.
Exactly. Ki Adam notzar mishamayim, eretz v'yam. The person is a human being was created from the heavens, from the land, and from the ocean. How is that? We know that the water came down from the clouds, right? And we know that the earth was dry. So what did Hashem do? Hashem took the dry earth and he took a little bit of the water and he made it into mud, and then he molded it into the shape of a human being. So we see that who is part of the physical makeup of a human being? Aretz, Yam, Shamayim. So it says, and Mishloshtam nesa ish shalem, because the word ish, man, Aleph, Aretz, Yud, Yam, Shin, Shamayim. The three elements that made him. Eretz, Yam, Shamayim, Rashi Tevot, the first three letters, Ish. Now, because of that, we see that the nature of the person is similar to the nature of what made him. What is the nature of earth? What is the nature of the water? What was the nature of the skies? To expand, expand, expand. No borders, right? So because he was made from them, so similarly the person has those characteristic traits. Ever since then, every human being has that embedded in him. He constantly wants to break borders. Put any rule, a person put a rule on human beings. What do they want to do? They want to break it. Put a red button and says don't touch. They want to touch. Anything that you say you can't do, we have that thing of what? We like to break the, breach the fence, break the borders. ולעומת זה, even though we're trying to say now how's this connected to the man? Now, even if the human being comes and he says, oh, I also want to expand without stopping, I also want to live life without borders, then because his makers listened to God, when Hashem said, stop, up until here and no more, the water stopped. Up until here and no more, the sky stopped, right? So he says, just like they stopped, when Hashem tells them, stop, he too needs to stop. Why? Just like his makers, right? So how do we stop that person? How do we stop a human being from breaching those fences, from going over without any control? Im bechukotay telechu ve'mitzvotai tishmoru. This is when Hashem says, up until here. This is what you're allowed to do as a Jew. This is as far as you can go. So we see over here when the rabbi said that there's a battle between the physical and the spiritual, that the body wants the tanugim, it wants the enjoyable pleasures of the body, and the neshama also wants the enjoyment of the toiling of the Torah, and there's a battle. Now, why would there be a battle? Because the way a human being was made, the way the human being was made from Eretz, Yam, Shamayim, naturally, he's predisposed to wanting to break all the borders, not to keep any laws, to do whatever he wants. Comes the Torah and says, all the things that you really want are only going to come if you are going to if you're going to close yourself off in the confines of the Torah and the mitzvot masim tovim, which seems to anybody who's on the outside as something negative. I don't want to be confined to any 613 laws. I don't want to be told what to do. But what is revealed to us with David HaMelech, he says, you don't understand. Bechukotay, what did it say over there? Bechukotay eshta'ashea. These chukim, these decrees, these laws are my source of enjoyment. This is where I get all my enjoyment and happiness and all these benefits. So we come back to the original question. So if you get all these benefits, and all these benefits are supposed to be in the next world, how are we receiving it in this world? So
we get some extra.
So we see we have a contradiction over here. We have a battle for the physical joy and a battle for the spiritual joy. So it's always good to learn Pirkei Avot in this time, because right now this is the time of between Pesach and Shavuot, and it's always good to put in something from Pirkei Avot. There's a famous Pirkei Avot that talks about the pleasures of the body that are complete contradiction to the pleasures of the soul. That the soul derives its pleasure from the learning of Torah. The pleasures of the body, use your imagination for what everybody enjoys. But for the pleasures of the soul, we know is the limud Torah. So Masechet Avot says, "Kach hi darka shel Torah." This is the way of the Torah. If you really want to know what's the way of the Torah, this is the way of the Torah. Pat b'melach, bread with salt. Pat b'melach tochel, v'bayim b'mshorah tishteh. Bread in salt you will eat, and water you will drink. V'al haaretz tishan, v'chayei tzara tichyeh. You're going to sleep on the floor, and you shall have a life of sorrow, of torment. Uva Torah ata'amel, and in the Torah you shall toil. V'im ata oseh ken, ashrecha v'tov lecha. Anyone who does that, ashrecha v'tov lecha, blessed are you, and good, and it's good for you. Ashrecha ba'olam hazeh, v'tov lecha ba'olam haba. It's going to be good for you here, and even better for you in the world to come. Now, this is harsh. I don't know if anybody can live this Torah of salt, bread and salt in a glass of water. I mean, we need our Lenny's pizza every Tuesday, no? We need our cup of coffee in the morning, no? Right? We need ice cream when it's hot outside, no? Simple physical pleasures. We're not talking about crazy things. So Masechet Brachot elaborates on this. Masechet Brachot on the 63rd page says, and by the way, a bulk of this lesson is from Shvilei Pinchas, because he did a phenomenal job on unfolding this. He says, how do we know, Masechet Brachot says, Minayin she'en divrei Torah mitkayimim ela b'mishum mit atzmo alea. Who says that the Torah doesn't get fully mitkayemet, that all these things don't really come to fruition only for the person who acts in this way? Bread and salt, water, sleep on the floor, torment yourself. It says, I'll tell you how. There's a pasuk that says, Zot HaTorah Adam ki yamut ba'ohel. It says, Zot HaTorah, the Torah is, when a person dies in the tent. Dies in the tent, meaning not dies in the tent, but rather goes into the tent, which is a place of learning, and he dies over there. What does it die over there? He doesn't care about anything else. Everything is dead to him. The only thing that he cares about is the book. So it says, this is why the Midrash says, that anybody who gets to this point that can forsake all the outside world and says, give me this tent, it's me in this book, and I don't care about anything else. It's like mamash, it's as if he's dying in the tent, he doesn't care about anything else. And this is his life. He says, you could get to the point that what? That a person can pray, shikanes Torah lechol gufo. He says, please, I pray that let the Torah go into my body. V'itpalel shelo yikanssim ma'adanim letoch gufo. And you'll pray, please, I don't want the pleasures of the world to go into my body. He says, why? This is incredible. Ki ta'anugei haguf machrivim et ta'anugei haTorah. He says, because anybody who indulges in anything of the physical world, it diminishes or even destroys the pleasures of the Torah. In other words, physical pleasures diminish spiritual enlightenment. This is huge.
Have an ice cream, is that going to interfere with the kedusha of the learning?
I would say no, because I heard many stories of rabbis after, learning Torah and trying to crack a page of Gemara, and finally they were able to do it. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I heard of a Rosh Yeshiva that went to go get ice cream. At 3 in the morning, his students see him over there. Rabbi, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Why are you eating ice cream? He says, I just tortured the body for I don't know how many hours. We're in the college studying, and I finally it helped me. It kept me up. It gave me the strength to learn the sugya. I said, now that I got my spiritual enlightenment, I thought I would give the body the reward, give it an ice cream. So there's a concept of ratzov vashov. You know what's ratzov vashov? Balance. As long as you have as much spirituality as much physicality, you're good. If you become a Jew who's able to tip the scale where there's more spirituality than physicality, such as Baba Sali, they used to eat once a week. He didn't care about food. He had a spiritual sustenance that kept him going. You notice all the rabbis, look at them, they're like sticks. They can't move. Why? They don't care about the food. They don't care. Maybe they'll drink some water. Maybe half the time they're fasting for the zchut of Am Yisrael. But what they're saying here is something else. It says, anybody who starts to live a life of pleasures, give me that steak, give me that meal, give me that shoe, give me that shirt, give me that sleep, give me that vacation. What happens? Those tanugeh haguf machrivim et tanugeh Torah, because you lose a sense of your Torah growth in that process. You can't be that guy and be this guy. So if you want to be a spiritual giant, or if you want to be a Jew that's on the right path, and if you want to have that experience of experiencing that the Torah is not a toil, not hard work, but like David HaMelech, Shashoim, this is Six Flags Great Adventure. You're reading the Gemara with your hands up. Whoa, what is this? Like enjoying life. Reading a pasuk in the Torah, or Tehillim, or Gemara, then you have to say that you have to diminish. Maybe coffee, no sugar. Maybe everybody has cake and you pass on it. Maybe steak only once a week for Shabbat. Things like that, because you're starting to say, I'm less concerned about giving bodily pleasures, but I'm more concerned about spiritual enlightenment. And you have to understand that this is a madrega. This is a level that you get to. Not everybody gets there. This is not an entry level thing where you're, this is something part of your day to day. This is, once you're there and you're learning and you are desiring a relationship with God, you're desiring a relationship with the book, where you want this book to start talking to you past the commentary, when the letters are popping out and speaking to you, and you're starting to have a real spiritual experience, then you have to take away from the physicality. You have to take away from the materialism. As a matter of fact, we know that there's other cultures that they completely nullify the body. It's all about spirituality, right? Like the monks, like the Buddhists, like the people that sit in they torture their body for 20, 30 years just to sit and hum for 30. It's not us. Jews, it's all about using the physical to uplift the spiritual through the physical, right? We don't ignore the fact that we were living in a body, but when we go about it the right way, we're able to experience spiritual enlightenment, and this is what the Torah is letting us know. This is all building off of the Rashi that we had in the beginning of Amal HaTorah. How do we understand Amal HaTorah? Is it just bland work? I'm doing the mitzvah because I was commanded, or can I derive some joy out of it? And this is how we got into this whole thing of why there was joy. Why do we need pleasures? We're made from dust. We're made from water. They wanted to expand. So there's the whole push and tug from the spiritual side and the physical side when it comes to enjoyment. However, the Chazon Ish says something in his book, Emunah V'Bitachon. It says, anybody who merited to this lifestyle that we just discussed, that he was able to asot shiluv of Yegiat Torah v'Simchat Torah, that he was able to toil in the Torah and derive enjoyment out of it as well. He says this person zacha lirot amitut metziato yitbarach. Now he's able to really experience and not only experience but feel God in their life. Miyad nichnas bo simchat gail and ketz. When a person discovers this, the enjoyment that he can derive from Torah learning, it becomes like an endless feeling of joy that it has no end. V'nishmato ne'ima alav, and his soul starts to feel different within his body. His soul starts to feel ne'ima, pleasant. V'chol ta'anugei besarim chako avro. It says, and any of the pleasures of the flesh are not interesting to him anymore. V'nafsho ha'adina mitatefet b'kedusha. And his nefesh, his soul, is almost enveloped in a state of kedusha, and you're experiencing yourself in a completely different way when you reach this level. When you discover that the Torah, that toiling with Torah is also a pleasurable experience, he says your neshama shifts. Something shifts inside. The Chazon Ish is testifying over here. V'chol ta'anugei ha'olam ke'efes neged oneg shel dvikot ha'adam v'tzor yitbarach. And all the pleasures in the world become zero, nullified, nothing compared to the feeling of clinging to God, the dveikut. This is what the Hasidim say, dveikis. What's dveikis? They're experiencing that they get more out of learning this book and what's in it more than anything else. Nothing can be better than reading the book, learning the book, living out the book. When you get to that place, to that state, you see that not only does your neshama shift and goes into a different state, shemitatefet b'kedusha, but nothing can compare to it. Now, all this is possible because of one thing. You have to, what we're trying to understand is that you give me a very, 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 very high, lofty concept that I'm probably never going to achieve. And I want to understand why I can't, right? Who can have this dveikut, right? I'm looking around, I'm saying to myself, it's going to be a very hard feat for me to do, right? And if I'm telling it to you, you're going to say, you know what, this is not Torah that I can connect to. This is something that maybe I can listen to, but I don't know if I can live it out. But the next piece I'm going to tell you, it shows you that it's available to everybody. And why? Because something happened to all of us before we were born that gave us a fighting chance to be able to achieve dvekut in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to able to achieve this shift in our neshama in order to get to that higher level where Torah is not a toil, but it's the toiling of a Torah that you're able to derive simcha, happiness, sha'ashuim out of it. It says in the Gemara in Masechet Nida, the 30th page on the second side, Darash Rabbi Shemalai, it says about a baby that's in the womb. It says when the unborn baby is in the womb, he eats everything that his mother eats, and he drinks everything that the mother drinks. And there's a candle that is lit on top of the baby's head, and the baby has the ability to look from one end of the world to the other end of the world with his baby eyes. In other words, misof olam lesof olam, you have to understand that right now our eyes are inhibited, our vision is inhibited, but there is a reality where as human beings with these physical human eyes, there's a way to see all the way to the top of the heavens and all the way below. That was taken from us in Bereshit. Hashem took that capability so the Reshaim won't benefit from it. He saw that it wouldn't be good for the Reshaim, so that is reserved for the Tzaddikim in the Olam Haba, in the time to come, the time of the Geulah, the time of Mashiach, the time of Olam Haba. That is that Or HaGanuz is going to come back, and we're going to be able to do that. But the baby has that ability in the womb. Sharone, misof ha'olam v'ad sofo. And it says, not only that, the days that baby stays in the womb of his mother, sharu b'tova yoter mo'otan hayamim. It says, ve'en lecha yamim sh'adam sharu b'tova yoter mo'otan hayamim. Those are the best days of a person's life, when he's in the womb of his mother. Everything is provided for him. He has this ability to see from all ends of the world. There's a candle that is on top of his head. Ve'melamdin oto kol haTorah. And they teach him the entire Torah. However, when he comes to see the light of day, comes a malach and he hits him. Where? Right here. Umeshekacho kol haTorah kula. And he makes him forget all the Torah. So what happens when we're in the womb? You start to learn all the Torah. You have all the knowledge, everything, on the highest level. and it's ingrained in our mind. It's ingrained, like a record, right? You ever see a record that has grooves, right? That's the Torah that's in our brain. Then the malach comes and we forget it. It's almost like he took the needle out of the record player. You can't produce the sound. You don't know what's on there, right? Comes the Noam Elimelech and says in Likutei Shoshana, Im lo hayu melamdin ota, if they didn't teach us this Torah, it wouldn't be possible for us to learn, to accept, and to internalize any of the Torah that we learn. Dachen melamdim otam mitchila. That's why they teach us first in the womb. It's like that when the rabbi comes and repeats the Torah, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet. Yes, right? When we get that. I understand that. It's easy for me to digest. When they give me a Torah concept, Paraduma, Shatnez, Kashrut, Pesach, Lulav. Okay, it makes sense. Why? Because you have something already ingrained in your mind from the learning, and you're just refamiliarizing yourself with the learning. And because of that, even though we have this imprint that we learned all the Torah, even though a person must work with all his might and he must make all the efforts in order to find this roshem in his mind, to find this engraving that he has in his mind, to wake it up in order to make it bubble to the top, and come to the level that he was before he was created, when he was beneath tachat kisei hakavod. In other words, we have the ability within us for our neshama to reach the level, not even in the womb, the level of the neshama being underneath the throne of glory, which we said is what? The world of joy, the world of happiness. That's why the neshama is drawn into pleasures, right? So it says that learning that we do in the womb, if we toil in the Torah, we can bring the neshama back to a level as if it was underneath the throne of glory. That is incredible to say, let alone to think about it, because it's an out of this world experience. The throne of glory is not part of this world. It's not part of this reality, and we are able to access that reality through Torah learning. Incredible. Lastly, it says, this will be in conclusion, it says, we started the class with Im Bechukotay telchu v'mitzvotai tishmeu v'asitim otam v'natati gishmechem be'etam. It says, Kadosh Baruch Hu lets us know that if we go in His ways, if we follow His laws, His statutes, His commandments, and we did them, v'natati gishmechem be'etam, I would give you the rains in their proper time. Now, what's interesting about the rains being given at their proper time? It says that this Bechukotay goes back to what David HaMelech said, that we merit this whole thing, that Hashem gives us everything that we need at its proper time. And remember, there's that rain again. What does the rain do? The rain comes down from the heavens, falls into the water, makes the ground muddy. So that means it satisfies all of our elements, all of our desires. And we're able to do Bechukotecha eshtashea. There becomes a joyful toiling of the Torah. Lit'aneg b'tanugei Torah. And by this, you're able to overpower the evil inclination that is constantly trying to convince us to sin and to go after the pleasures of the world. And we know what happens when you chase the pleasures of the world. The pleasures of the Torah diminish. So by doing this, we see that by learning the Torah in the proper way and wanting to derive the enjoyment out of it, we have to also be a little bit careful on how much of the world's enjoyment we want. And that's a decision each person has to make. Now, in conclusion, we see that it's a tova. It's good advice to curb your physical enthusiasm. We know that we have a physical enthusiasm. What? We want to eat more. We want to sleep more. We want to do more things that are connected to the pleasures of the body. We have that. We have to curb it. Why? Because just Hashem curbed the ocean and the earth and the skies, similarly we have to curb ourselves.
You want 2 pizza, you eat 1 pizza.
You know, they say that a person, when somebody wants to atone for their sins, they did something bad. There's things. You can do ta'aniyot. What's ta'aniyot? You can fast. Certain things you need to fast 1 day. Certain things you have to fast 3 days, 7 days, or something 63 days, 84 days, right? Chazal tell us that we live in a generation that it's not, we're not on that level that we can deprive our bodies of nutrition every single day in order to atone for a sin. We're not that mentally strong nor physically strong. But if you sit in front of a steak dinner and you're a quarter into it, or maybe even half into it, and you come take that big juicy piece, the one that's really going to give you the ultimate pleasure, and you say, I'm going to put it down. It counts for you as a ta'anit.
Why is that? I never.
Because what's ta'anit? Ta'anit is when you make the body suffer,
Okay.
right? Take away from its enjoyment.
But why should we not enjoy our body and the Torah? Why we have to suffer our body to enjoy the Torah?
Nobody said that.
That's what you say.
No.
Don't eat the steak. The good piece
No,
of
no.
the steak. Don't eat it.
Did you sin?
No.
Did you make so are we talking? We're talking about somebody.
Only
Somebody.
if somebody sins.
You made a sin?
Yes, exactly.
You want to do ta'anit?
You ask
I'm
me
telling you, no, don't do ta'anit. Put down that last piece of steak instead of ta'anit. Hashem says it counts for you. But if you're tzaddik yesod olam, that you don't sin, you don't need that. Keep eating the steak.
And I be next to you.
Keep eating the
Call
steak.
me.
Keep eating the steak.
No, all the time they say that, even without this. You shouldn't make enjoyment so much for yourself. Because that, like you said before, that take away from.
Because in reality, we are spiritual beings on a physical journey. We are spiritual. אנחנו רוחניים.
Okay.
אנחנו רק נמצאים בעולם עם מעיל שנקרא גוף. When this body goes, we continue for eternity.
I know,
So
but
in
why-
reality, who you are is a neshama
Yes.
that doesn't need food, doesn't need water, doesn't need sleep, doesn't need all that.
But why we have a goof, we need all that.
Because Hashem said, in this world, it's going to be neshama and a goof. Go. Let me see you. That's the challenge. That's the game. In basketball, they give you 5 players versus 5 players with a round ball. Football, they do 15-15 with a football. So each game is different. The game that we're in right now, these are the rules, these are the laws. I'm letting you know how to win.
Okay.
And if you're losing, show you how you can come back from behind. So we have to curb our physical enthusiasm and upgrade
The
our...
challenge is greater if you have a group in the Shema. The challenge, the reward is so much better because you're breaking the ta'avot and lifting yourself spiritually. The idea is a group can bring you down. There's a yetzer. Hashem wanted us to have 2 yetzerim, and then to battle it out.
I'll give you guys a quick story that crystallizes this. There was a story of a rabbi who was bringing a lot of people to Baalei Teshuvah, bringing them back to do teshuvah, and they would come to him every Shabbat. One time, one of the guys comes to the rabbi and tells him, "Rabbi, I can't come this week." So he tells him, "Why?" He says, "Because this Shabbat there's a derby." He says, "What's a derby?" He says, "There's 6 soccer teams. They go at each other, and the winner advances. The winner advances to the final 2, and it's happening this Shabbat in the stadium next to the house. I can't. You know I'm a soccer fanatic." He says, "Chaval, Shabbat. You know what? Maybe you tell them that one team can come on Tuesday and kick the ball to the net for 90 minutes as much as they can. Let the other team come on Wednesday, kick the ball into the net as many times as they want, and whoever gets the most balls in the net will win." He says, "No, Rabbi, that's not how the game. The whole fun of the game is what? Is when you're against each other, when the guy's trying to block you, when the guy's trying to score on you. The whole thing is when somebody's challenging you. Says, now you understand what life is about. You have a challenge right now. That's what life is about, winning the challenges.
Exactly. That's why the Malachim, they're jealous of the people on earth, because they don't have a Yetzer Hara to fight against. So
That's the class tonight in
it's the greatness of the
in what do you call it?
Hashem
In
giving
the lighthouse.
Adam on earth to give them the chance to challenge the Yetzer, whereas the Malachim don't have that chance.
Chazak. So we see that what we have over here is that we have to curb our physical enthusiasm that is embedded in us, that we're naturally drawn to because of the elements of the human being is made from, like we discussed, Ish, Esh, Yam, Shamayim. And we have to stimulate our spirituality. Why? It's there. Already from before we were born, it's already embedded in our neshama. But what we have to do, we have to stimulate it. We have to go to a class. We have to learn. We have to discover through the toiling of the Torah, the simcha that's embedded in the Torah, the shashuim that's in the Torah. And once you get to the level where you discover the beauty, the joy, the happiness of the Torah while you're learning, you're in the level of David HaMelech. And then you start to feel what? You feel less and less that you need the worldly and the physical and the material. And you feel more and more that you want more of the spiritual, more of the book, more of God. And once you get to that, you get to that level of dvekut. And once you get to that level of dvekut, we see that you are able to achieve the high level of being more on the spiritual side than the physical side. And all that does is it gives you reward in this world and in the next. Hashem does have reward in the Olam Haba. All we do, all performance of mitzvot for Olam Haba. But the reason why we get reward in Olam Hazeh is because there are some things that are so immense in reward and so immense in their impression on the people that we do with and in the Shamayim that Hashem rewards us here as well. So we see that the performance of the mitzvot, Hashem can't wait to give it to us. He says, I can't wait to give it to you in Olam Haba. You know what? Here, in the rain, in the family, in the parnasa, in the protection, in the everything I can give it to you here. What? Just perform the Torah mitzvot, which for some is an easy thing. For some, it's a difficult thing, but nevertheless, it's our secret and it's our power. Hashem vayich otchem, sameach otchem, and B'ezrat Hashem we will be matzlichim in the performance of the Torah mitzvot and maasim tovim that should give us this shashuim that the class was talking about.